Welcome. We're so glad that you decided to take this course. I'm sure that you're going to find it very informational. You're going to be learning quite a bit of tools and techniques as you move through this session, and we are more than excited to have you with us. So let's get started. What you will learn today is about your legal rights. What happens if you give up those legal rights? And what's at stake?
Your legal rights. You know, in America, we have a lot of rights, and a lot of people stand behind the rights. And everybody has the right to put their affairs in order. It's something you do. Now, before we get too far into this, we should probably let you know that we're not lawyers, and the good thing is we're not lawyers. All kidding aside, though,
more than 50% of Americans don't have a will. It's amazing, that statistic to us, and we just can't figure out why people haven't taken the time. But then we learned that people just don't have the tools and techniques. Did you know that in 2013 there was $1.2 billion worth of unclaimed life insurance? That's according to Consumer Reports. Now consider this. How did that happen? People didn't communicate. You made your life insurance plan with your financial planner, but you never bothered to tell the beneficiary. Just think about all those people out there and how they could have had their burdens lessened if they would have just known about that life insurance plan. Perhaps they could have had better ways to close the estate or funeral arrangements, all kinds of things. The insurance industry is supposed to notify people, but sometimes it's kind of hard to find those people, especially if it's a female, right?
Yeah. Females get married, the name's changed. How do they know? The estate house is sold, so there's no address associating the family with that anymore. It can be very difficult. You know, as the boomers leave the earth over the next 19 years, we're going to see the largest transfer of wealth in the history of America. I'm going to say that again, the largest transfer of wealth in the history of America. And why is that? Well, because all of the boomers grew up in a different age. They had retirement accounts, 401ks, those types of things where they could invest their money, they could put it somewhere where it was growing for them. And they've been very successful as well. A lot of things have changed over the last 30, 40 years. You know, as far as we're concerned, we just want to make sure that your money stays with you and your family. And that's what putting a savvy estate plan does for you. You know, putting your affairs in order and creating an estate plan is the biggest financial decision you're going to make, hands down. It's about protecting everything that you've got. A lot of people want to go to the death thing on this, and we need to tell you this is not about death. It's about protecting family and money. Death is really only one of the triggering factors. Fact is, 62% of us will become incapacitated for at least 1 year. And that's probably going to be the last year, but it can also happen all the time. Car wrecks, sporting injuries, whatever, that you can be incapacitated temporarily. And this is the key here. You're still with us. You need somebody that can step in, that can keep things running. Who's going to pay the bills? Who's going to make sure businesses are running? There's a lot of things that are going on in your absence, and we need to set things up in a way that if something happens to you, somebody else can take the reins and go.
So what happens if you give up your rights? You know, as you move through this course, we want you to think about your family and what would happen if you didn't have an estate plan in place. First of all, your family would have to pay for the lawyers and the court systems to prove that they are your legal heirs. Creditors, of course, they're going to come after the family and try and get their money that you might still owe. Your family really has no legal right to anything. What they'll have to do is they'll have to go through probate, because if you have no estate, you go into a testate, and then you'll have the courts deciding for you. If you are a single person and you haven't put together an estate plan, maybe you want your money to go to a charity. Well, it won't go there if it lays unclaimed. It will go to the government, and the government will keep it and just gain the interest off of it. All of your digital assets will be lost, and we'll talk in depth about that later on through the sessions. And you could possibly be more subject to financial abuse. As we age, more and more people become vulnerable, they're lonely, they're scared, and they may trust someone who is not at all trustworthy. There are a lot of people out there that are spending a lot of time trying to scam elders, and it's really quite rampant. So this is one thing that an estate plan can do to protect your family. And minor children. Have you thought about your minor children if you have them? Maybe you have thought about where they would go, but essentially they'll become wards of the court. And generally speaking, the court tries to put them with their family members. You know, we've got a story about that.
Yeah, I remember when we were doing one of our live workshops, and we were going over this portion of the workshop, and this lady, she just kind of stood up out of her chair and exclaimed, well, I know what's going to happen with my children because my husband and I talked with our best friend, and should something happen to us, she's going to take over and she knows what to do. And I just had to ask her, do you have that in writing? Is that in your will? Have you made up guardianship papers? And you could just see the fear wash over her face when she realized, you know, talking to somebody doesn't do anything. This is a legal process, and you have to take the legal steps to protect what's going on. You know, when I told her that you know, what's going to happen is that Child Protective Services is going to step in. They're going to take the children, and they're going to decide what to do with them. And a lot of times now they're leaning towards putting them back with family. So that other person, that friend, is really in a losing battle if it's not in writing.
And finally, if you have a business, a small or large, there's a good chance that that business that you own could potentially close because you have not set up an exit strategy.
Peace of mind comes from taking actions. And we need to take actions that are going to benefit us today, tomorrow, and for future generations. So as you're thinking through this process of putting your affairs in order and then creating an estate plan, you're doing it for you to protect everything so that you have what you need as you move through your life, but you're also doing it for them. You're doing it for the people that you love that are counting on you. By doing this, you're not burdening them. You're setting everything in place. It's really the last chapter of your legacy.
Thank you so much for joining us for session 1 today. We look forward to having you continue to carry on, and we will meet you again in session 2.
Thank you.